Allison might be muted.
Sorry, thanks, Maria. Quickly, I'll go over our meeting objectives for today. We've all been looking forward to this meeting very much. And before I get into this, I do want to make it very clear that although there are some of you that may have seen a draft presentation at a couple committee meetings about a week ago, this presentation that you're going to see tonight has been really enhanced since then. AECOM has put a lot of work into incorporating the feedback that was received during both of those committee meetings. And so if you've been reviewing that draft presentation in detail, a lot of the elements are the same, but you'll also be sure to pay attention tonight because there are a lot of additions. So with that being said, we gave an update on the project and on the potential to speed up the process. Number two, AECOM, our city consultant, will be unveiling 2 potential schematic design options. So to make clear, this is not a full master plan that analyzes zoning or land uses. This is specific to quality of life improvements, which is what the GEO bond is here to fund. So it includes lighting and pathway improvements, sidewalks, crosswalks, and landscaping, trees, seating, quality of life improvements. The differences and similarities of the 2 designs will be made clear by AECOM, who will be presenting today. The presentation, by the way, is also available on the GEO bond website, which is in the corner here on the right side of your screen, gombinfo.com. It has been posted in the news section, so it's available on the home screen in case you want to download it or flip through the presentation yourself while you're hearing from AECOM. After this presentation, there will also be a survey that we'll be sending out, which will be open for 1 week. So AECOM will be able to take your input and ultimately, hopefully, produce one final design. We'll also be hearing your feedback today on the 2 preferences. At the end of the full presentation by AECOM, we'll be asking who's here available from the public who would like to speak. You'll get 2 minutes to speak. And then we'll be discussing next steps of the project design phase. So to be clear, this is just a preliminary design that's still going to incorporate feedback from here. In the future, this project will become a CIP project. It will eventually go to DRB and hit all the following steps from there. But really, this is to make the area more bright, safe, aesthetically pleasing. We want it to be a place where both residents and visitors want to stay and hang out and shop. We want this to attract some business. We want it to be helpful to the local businesses that are there today. It's beautification. In this photo here, we see an aerial shot, which is beautiful, but we've also noticed that on the ground level, it's not so much. So we've got that $15 million to invest in this. Next slide. And then just really briefly, we really thank the voters of Miami Beach, residents, taxpayers. Thank you so much. About 2 years ago, 1 month from now, you all went to one of the most the largest showing turnout for a election that we have seen so far. And we got a lot of great feedback, and the residents wanted this GEO bond program to pass so they could see their quality improvements in their neighborhoods. Thank you so much for helping us pass this so we could do beautiful projects like this. Thank you to Seth Gadinsky and his whole group with the 41st Street Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee. They have done so much with this. They started with Alta Gell, who was a previous consultant before the GEO bond was even passed. And they've really been kind of the visionaries of what this area could become. Karen Revo is also on the line. She is the chair of our GOB Oversight Committee, and I know we have others from both of those committees on the line as well. Thank you to our whole Oversight Committee who makes sure that all of our projects are on time and in budget. Our Inspector General has been involved in all of our internal implementation meetings as well as our committee meetings. Thank you. Economic Development, who is spearheading this project right now and who has other ideas for the area in the future. And AECOM, thank you so much for incorporating all of the input and coming up with this great presentation that you're going to see today. Thank you also to any HOA presidents who I know are on the line. I know we have a lot of representation today from MBU, MBNA, the Middle Beach, Nautilus, and then I see some North Beach and South Beach folks on the line too. So this is going to be great. I'm kicking it off to Lauren and Sarah now with AECOM. Oh, here's my contact information for if you ever want to contact me, and we already introduced Vanessa in the Neighborhood Affairs Division. Thanks.
So Sarah, if you go ahead and unmute.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Sarah Bassett. I'm with AECOM, and Lauren Swan is also on the call tonight, also with AECOM. We are very excited to be presenting this to you tonight, and thank you so much for the city and the GeoBond and all the wonderful committees. Being a part of this process has been really wonderful, and we're so excited to take it to you. So today we're going to walk through how we got to today, our past analysis, and then the proposed schematic designs. So to start, we really want to talk about the robust project history that this has taken, starting with the Altagal Vision Plan document produced in 2018, which really worked a lot with the public. So I'm sure a lot of you recall many of those meetings and different events. The GeoBond Committee has been very busy establishing shortly after that vision plan, including development of the bond committee itself, appointment of the Inspector General. And while the bond has been moving other projects forward, the AECOM team started our streetscape planning efforts earlier this year. And that will be concluded, what you'll see tonight, that'll be concluded by committee approval of the final schematic design. So the efforts on 41st Street, the public input piece is so important to what you're going to be seeing tonight. And that Altagal visioning process with you, the public, really incorporated a lot of different outreach, from workshops to surveys, charrettes, polling, and then we're here tonight. It's a part of our virtual meeting, as well as the survey we're going to be administering to gain your feedback after what you see tonight. So while the Altagal Vision Plan really focused on community engagement and surveys to define a vision for 41st Street, AECOM, what we've done is we've really taken those findings and worked to develop schematic designs for 2 streetscape options. These, we've considered and incorporated a lot of different conditions for the corridor, as well as those visions that you came up with Altagal. So our team has been very busy looking at what's feasible along the corridor. We've done this through reviewing over 30 different plan documents, both for 41st Street corridor itself and its surrounds. We've created a matrix of proposed projects. We've identified all sorts of different constraints and opportunities from those proposed projects. We've spoken with over 15 different city departments, as well as the FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation. We've also met with the Blue Ribbon Committee earlier this spring. And now we've been working on the schematic design process. This has really allowed us to identify both conflicts and overlaps of different projects and different proposed programming elements for the corridor. It's allowed us to assess what's feasible along the corridor and make sure that we really align those sort of feasibility and constraints against the vision and the budget for the corridor to make sure that what we're developing is something that can really be actionable and really terrific for you all. So the outcomes of all of this analysis has really shaped the priorities of the schematic designs you're going to see tonight. It's worked to help enhance a pedestrian-friendly environment for residents and the businesses of the community. This was something we heard a lot and read a lot about in all the different planning efforts. We really looked at FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, as a corridor and an evacuation route, understanding what programmatic elements as part of the design can really touch the roadway, and we'll get into that a little bit later. We've also talked with the county and looked at their bus rapid transit plan, BRT bus rapid transit. We're also incorporating ongoing projects, including all the bus shelter projects that were approved, signalization efforts at the intersections to make crossing time shorter, all the great lighting projects, including Commissioner Minor's tree wrapping project all along the corridor. These are all things that we sort of looked at and assessed as part of the design process. When we pulled the Blue Ribbon Committee earlier this spring about their priorities, we've really looked at this as incorporating all these different priorities into these designs. In terms of the different projects, we touched on the bus shelters, the light wrapping, different lighting upgrades along the corridor. We also looked at talked with the city's transportation department to coordinate with their bicycle master plan. This is really important, making sure that we're considering bicycle infrastructure, both with their existing as well as future. Currently, there are sharrows on 41st Street, and then there's a lot of different great bicycle improvements the city is looking to make. And this plan definitely responds to that and is working to incorporate that into the schematic designs. We also, looked and talked with the city about the urban forestry master plan, which really looks to diversify street trees, providing more shade and having palms that have less fronds that drop on the street. In terms of all the different conditions for the corridor, this has been a really big part of our analysis, reviewing conditions of the corridor, including constraints. Again, because this is a FDOT roadway, really looking at, what we can do in terms of touching the roadway itself as an evacuation route, and understanding plan for busing, all the signal projects, all the different conditions and systems that really matter to what we can propose for the corridor. We also looked at parking, something very important for both businesses as well as residents and folks who visit the community, trying to understand, what is the on-street parking environment like? What is it like on 41st Street compared to the side streets? What parking is available in different lots, both, big open lots as well as the parking garage. And all of this has informed the schematic streetscape design to create two conceptual designs that welcome you to 41st Street. In everything we read, this is something that's so important to create a welcoming environment. These design concepts look to enhance quality of life, attract economic development, and really look to activate the community, something that's so important and has informed every aspect of this design process. They incorporate the themes identified by you, the public, during the Alta-Gal visioning. And these, 6 themes were really things that really came out in all of those conversations. Creating designs that promote safety and security, address quality of life, incorporate green infrastructure, really work to enhance both the bicycle and pedestrian environment, consider the relationship to the vehicle, as well as really look at public transportation and sort of a gateway into the community. So we've really used all of these different themes to shape the priorities of our schematic designs. To do this, we're really looking at how these designs can build a better pedestrian environment, to place a place that really supports walkers, bicyclists, folks who use the trolley, the bus, also, using the car, all of this multimodal experience. A place that's comfortable both day and night, and a place that inspires business growth along the corridor, something so important to vibrancy. So we took all of these different visioning elements and really transformed them into 2 proposed design schemes. We took each of the vision elements you worked with Alta-Gal and created project elements in response. We created sidewalk enhancements, plantings, on-street parking. Both schemes really look at improved crossings, incorporate bicycle network, and recommend signature elements. So these proposed schematic streetscape designs want to reinvigorate 41st Street. So we've come up with 2 designs. We're going to walk through them in more detail, starting with scheme 1, which is all in on 41st, followed by scheme 2, which is connect the community. So scheme 1 is all in on 41st. It really wants to keep the pedestrian on 41st Street for longer. It expands the sidewalk to make way for people through removing all of the on-street parking. It focuses only on 41st Street from Alton Road to Pine Tree Drive. It incorporates design elements that inspire vehicles to move slower. I mean, this is a FDOT roadway, and we understand that there's lots of traffic here. It is an evacuation route. So what are the things, we can think about that really help people slow down who drive along the corridor while also maintaining the existing roadway condition? We, want to work to create a destination for 41st Street. So really expanding the pedestrian environment for a place that people want to stay and visit different businesses and hang out with their friends and take long walks. Really creating a space for people to move along the corridor. So scheme 1, looks to build a gateway to 41st Street, really welcoming people into this as a district. Through this, we are proposing a gateway element. We're proposing more shade trees, but keeping those palms at intersections, really to create that, you're at the beach, you're on your way to the beach, really promoting sort of that aesthetic for Miami Beach. It also works to brand 41st Street through custom materials. Scheme 1 expands the sidewalk to make way for people. This is done through removing all of the on-street parking. And we really wanted to create sort of, one scheme that really just bends what your expectations are to make space for everything along this corridor. Businesses, so they can set up cafe seating, incorporating sculptural side seat walls, so people can sit and hang out with their friends or wait for the bus or the trolley. Really enhancing textures at the crossing, so pedestrians feel safer where they cross. As you're driving along here, that there's pedestrian activity, and these visual elements really help drivers slow down. Connecting to all the bicycle projects that the city's transportation department is working on, including increased bicycle or safer bicycle crossings at the intersections, more bicycle parking on the side streets, keeping palms at the corners like I talked about previously, but really improving a lot more, including more shade trees, really promoting, a space that feels comfortable on those hottest days. And of course, incorporating the important light wrapping project by Commissioner Minor. That's something really important that, invigorates activity along the corridor, both day and night. Scheme 1, truly expands the sidewalk. So in this, you can really see that, you have this safe buffer zone to the vehicle environments. That's really important to keep people safe and want to patron businesses because they feel safer. Businesses can set out cafe seating for people to sit and relax, while they enjoy a cup of coffee. Providing a safe refuge and shade, something so important on those hot days. Going back to the parking, we really spent a lot of time analyzing what it would mean to remove all that on-street parking. And that's something that is really important to expand that pedestrian environment by expanding those sidewalks. But to do this, we really looked at all the different parking available along the corridor, on the side streets, some of the other parking lots in the vicinity. And so this was something, to bring people to the corridor as a destination, and be able to enjoy the environment even more through, those parking spaces on side streets and visiting the main corridor. To remove all the palms and create more shade for people. This is something that we spend a lot of time looking at as well, incorporating shade trees and making it more comfortable for pedestrians, keeping those palms on the intersections and shade trees throughout the block. And then scheme 2. So scheme 2 looks to connect the community. So, we looked at on scheme 1, all in on 41st, all the bells and whistles. And Scheme 2 really looks at expanding the geography of what can be proposed by expanding into the side streets, creating flexible space for people, for both people and cars. And this scheme leaves some on-street parking, and you can see sort of this relationship, and we'll get into this more in detail, where you have flexible space where you can park, or you can hang out and have expanded cafe seatings. You could have festivals, all sorts of flexible space in Scheme 2, but really focusing on connecting to the community and expanding all the great design upgrades broader into the neighborhood. Scheme 2 also refreshes the streetscape materials, and it leaves more palms. Scheme 2 includes all of 41st Street, also from Alton to Pine Tree, but it expands into the side streets up to 42nd and down to 40th. It incorporates design elements that inspire vehicles to move slower along the FDOT roadway of 41st Street, but it also works to create a destination of 41st Street, just like Scheme 1 does. But it does this more through enhancing connection to the neighborhood for residents and visitors, as well as really valuing the businesses along the corridor. Scheme 2 also provides a gateway to the community through a gateway feature element, and as well as incorporating palms at intersections and using the city colored concrete to really create sort of a district branding, if you will. It creates flexible space for the sidewalk. You can sort of see here with the yellow car and the mopeds that this is parking spaces that are expanded or that use the same material as the sidewalk. And you can sort of block this off and use this, we saw with the food truck, and you can sort of see it in part of this diagram. You can use it as parking for vehicles and mopeds, but you can also use it to expand businesses into that space temporarily. Scheme 2 also incorporates sculptural seat walls, but only at mid-block crossings, really highlighting sort of that mid-block element along the scheme. It connects bicycle projects that the city's transportation department is working on, some of those intersection improvements, as well as the different bike lanes in the area and bicycle parking. It keeps most of the palms. It incorporates some shade trees. It also, of course, incorporates the important lighting project by Commissioner Minor. Scheme 2, as you can see here, it also expands the sidewalk area, but it really makes it flexible. This is an option that we really wanted to provide alternative to Scheme 1, where Scheme 1 really expands the sidewalk by removing all on-street parking. Scheme 2 leaves some on-street parking, but provides it as a flexible option. So businesses can expand into it, or you can leave it as a vehicle or moped or bicycle parking, really promoting sort of the safe refuge with additional landscaping and increased shading. Same with Scheme 1, we spent a lot of time really looking at the parking environment. We know this is very important for businesses along the corridor, for attracting people, for people visiting. But how do we create sort of this hybrid model that really looks to provide space for both vehicles and parking, as well as expanded sidewalks? So you can see here that we, provide some space for parking, but also remove some to create that flexible space. Knowing that the palms are really an iconic feature for 41st Street, Scheme 2 looks to keep more of those. It replaces with some shade trees, making sure we provide comfort on those hot days, but keeps that sort of signature element for the beach. So in comparing these two elements, Scheme 1, all in on 41st Street, is here on your left, and Scheme 2, Connect the Community, is here on your right. So Scheme 1 is all in on 41st Street. It wants to keep the pedestrian solely on 41st Street for longer. It expands the sidewalks to make way for people. And it does this through removing all of the parking. It upgrades the materials. It provides way more shade trees and palm trees only at intersections. Scheme 2 expands into the community and it looks to connect the community. So it's recommendations for 41st Street as well as the side streets. It creates flexible space for both parking and people. And it leaves some on-street parking. It refreshes the streetscape, so it has less upgraded materials from Scheme 1, but refreshes what's existing, and it leaves more palms throughout the entire proposed scheme. And this is really important. So the top diagram is the existing condition. The middle one is Scheme 1, all in on 41st, and the bottom one is Scheme 2, Connect the Community. We really want to show you, how we thought about how to narrow the feeling of the roadway. And so because this is a FDOT roadway and evacuation route, we're limited in what we can do to actually touch the driving lanes themselves. And so what we've done with this design is really thought through how we can make the pedestrian environment feel more pedestrian friendly, to attract people there, attract businesses there, while maintaining sort of the important function of what 41st Street is. And so we've done that through, plantings and sidewalk expansion, crossings that help slow traffic and address traffic calming and make pedestrians feel safer, cyclists feel safer to cycle along here with good buffering. It's always hard to cycle next to parked cars. And so you can really see in these three options how we're looking to make the feeling of the roadway narrower without structurally changing that environment. Really focusing on streetscape upgrades as enhancements. And so again, with the materials, so Scheme 1 really looks to have custom unit pavers, something that really brands 41st Street with the materials on the sidewalk itself, increase the number of shade trees, really expand the materials being used for the crossings, both at intersection and the mid-block, the medians, really thinking through how we can change the environment for both vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, folks using the trolleys, all the different modes that you use along 41st Street. And then Connect the Community uses a lot of the city's standard materials, really trying to create consistency across the entire corridor, both on 41st Street and into those important side streets to make sure we're responding to both residents as well as visitors and businesses. So this is a lot of information, and we're so excited to have a Q&A with you. We're going to get into the survey in just a moment, but just, our next step. So we're here today showing you these two different options. We spent a lot of time looking through analysis and feasibility. We talked through the design process with different stakeholders and interviews. We've developed these schematic designs. We're talking with you today. We talked with the Blue Ribbon Committee and the GeoBond Committee last week. What we're going to do is take all of this feedback we have received and will receive from you. And we're going to use that to create final schematic designs. And this will be taken in presentation to the Neighborhoods and Quality of Life Committee, as well as the Commissioner meeting. And from there, it'll go into future phases of design, but we're really excited to hear from you. And so we're going to enter into a Q&A session now, but we really want you to log on to this site, which will take you to the City of Miami Beach's website, where you can participate in a 10-question survey, providing your response to preference between Scheme 1 and Scheme 2. And your preference overall. So all the different elements from parking and palms or shade trees to seating, all the different elements, we want to hear from you on what your preference is between these two designs. With that, we'll turn it over to Q&A, and thank you so much. We're so excited to be presenting this to you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to open it up to Q&A now. As Sarah mentioned, and just some ground rules for how we're going to operate our Q&A. So everyone's going to have 2 minutes to go ahead and ask any questions or have a comment that they may have on this project. If you're participating on the Zoom app, which it looks like everybody is, go ahead and click the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And we ask that you please keep your comments within 2 minutes. And if you have questions about other projects, Vanessa and I are part of the Neighborhood Affairs Division, so we'll be happy to take those offline. If you're participating via phone, you're going to click *9. When you click *9, that will go ahead and raise your hand. We ask that we have everyone who has not spoken, they're going to be taken first. And if we have time after, we'll see if we could take our repeat callers. So I'm going to open it up to our first caller, Mr. Daniel Vaitia.
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. How are you?
Really nice presentation. Since I only have 2 minutes, I'll make my comments real quick. I like the schematic where you're removing the on-street parking on 41st Street. I think the right-of-way is very precious, very limited, and there's plenty of parking spaces located within the district. In doing so, I think you should enclose a dedicated bike lane that's protected along 41st Street, particularly with the bridge points. It makes it very difficult to have a consistent corridor all along, a bicycle corridor all along the corridor if you put it on the back streets. So I think it should be on 41st Street. I think it should be protected. I also think that the crossings need to be pavers, not stamped concrete. And also it'd be great to have medians at the middle points of the pedestrian crossings that you have so that the pedestrians are protected at the midpoint. But very nice presentation and definitely very much welcomed. Thank you for my comments.
Thank you, Daniel. And please, if everyone can participate via the survey after the meeting, once we upload this video, we are going to send an email and the email will have a link to the city project page, which also has the survey. I'm going to go to the next caller, Bill. Hello, Bill.
Can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
I have over 30 questions. Here's the best I can do in 2 minutes. The largest element missing from this plan is how to attract new businesses. We need an extensive market study using demographics and psychographics, basis of concerted business attraction and retention program. And let's be honest, many of the existing businesses have seen better days. While working to attract new businesses, why not also have something like a Great Streets Grant program to encourage existing businesses to upgrade their shops as the streetscape improves around them? Also missing is a discussion of any kind of special events program, accommodations for farmers markets, antique or flea markets, food, art, music festivals, etc. A critical outcome from the Altagal study was to better engage local families. These types of special events would increase awareness and foster connections between businesses, city officials, and residents, yet this presentation ignores this key element. Next, your parking analysis is merely an inventory, whereas the actual analysis that addresses the adequacy of parking for the businesses. A true analysis would address supply and demand in relation to the density of business uses. How can anyone make an informed decision on removing parking spaces without knowing how the businesses will be affected? Next, the current cross-section drawing shows palm trees close to the storefronts, while both new schemes indicate that no palm trees will be as close to the storefronts as they are now. Is this true? The current cross-section also shows sidewalks as narrow as 4 feet, while both new schemes show 12 feet as the narrowest dimension. Is this true? I'd like to see more cross-sections to get a better understanding of the variety of conditions. Next, you show a detail for a typical seating vignette for use with restaurants. Do these areas align with existing restaurants, or are they located based on the availability of excess sidewalk space? What flexibility does this plan have in the event a future restaurant opens in a space that is not currently a restaurant and they would like outdoor seating? Next, extensive use of unit pavers would be nice, but local utilities like to spray paint wherever the hell they want. Until we stop utilities from spray painting sidewalks, why spend money on fancy pavers? Next, the gateway element is located at the bridge over the Biscayne Waterway. Isn't the true entrance to Miami Beach back at Alton Road? Why isn't the gateway element there? Next, the art component of this project is only mentioned in passing. If there is a true commitment to public art, planning for the element for arts should be included from the very beginning, lest any installation feels like an afterthought. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for getting all that in within 2 minutes. We really appreciate that. But what I'd like you to do is if you could please email us. I'll grab your email after the meeting and I'll reach out to you so you have our contact. But please email us. You mentioned you had 30 questions and we'd love to go through them with you offline. But thanks for that question. I'm going to go ahead and go to Adrian Gonzalez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, yes.
How you doing? Thank you so much for taking the time to put this presentation on. It was very impressive. I represent I'm with the Lakeview Homeowners Association, but also a business owner, and I think everyone pretty much knows who I am for the most part. I think this is definitely an overweighted for improvement, which looks sensational. The only concern I would say I have is I like the element of removing the parking on 41st Street, but how many spots will that actually be removing? And do we have the capacity to compensate that on the outskirts? Because as having a kid on 41st Street, North Elementary, at the wrong hour, 41st Street is a parking lot, and you can't find parking whatsoever, even just to go to Chase Bank and so forth. So I'd love to know that answer to that question. But other than that, I love the idea of upscaling 41st Street and really making it an entrance to Miami Beach that we're proud of and we'll be looking forward to hanging out on.
Thank you, Adrian. Thanks for your question. And I'll turn that over if either Jadelle or Sarah regarding parking and how we'll incorporate that into the schematics.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments and questions. So scheme 1 removes 58 spaces along 41st Street.
Perfect. Thanks for that clarification. So we'll go ahead and go to Marie.
Yes, hello. My
Hi.
name is Riley, and thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I'm glad to see that you're looking into changing how we can cross the street safely and speed and all that. But you kept mentioning shade trees, lots of shade trees, and wanting to keep up with the scheme of what Miami Beach is and keep it in how it originally was. You know, Miami Beach is known for a lot of palm trees and fabric shade systems. And I was wondering why you didn't incorporate any shade systems in the shade, because I don't know if you realize it, but after every storm, when there are a lot of trees, there's a huge mess. So I just wanted to ask why you haven't included shade systems rather than a bunch of shade trees. I know that urban forestry is important. We could probably do a little more palm trees, but because they don't leave this big a mess as shade trees. So fabric shade systems have been in use of Miami Beach since the 1920s, and I just thought that would be something you might want to consider.
Thank you, Marie. So Sarah, I see you unmuted. I'll turn to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comment. So there's awnings on buildings, and visibility to stores from the street is something that's really important that we considered. We also thought about, you mentioned storms and understanding that, sometimes structural shade elements are really severely impacted during storms, and sort of the cost benefit to that. So in alignment with the urban forestry master plan, we really looked to incorporate trees and shade trees that are a part of that and recommended for everything from sort of the root system, but also to sort of shade elements that still align with the aesthetic of the palm. And so, in response to understanding that, knowing the palm, the royal palm is so important to sort of the image of Miami Beach, we recommend keeping them at the intersections, and especially as you sort of enter and exit the corridor, so you really still have that, sort of experience and aesthetic vision of the palm, but sort of intersperse options, to provide more shade. So we did look at structural elements, as part of it, but a lot of different constraints that a lot of the trees sort of outweighed some of the benefits. So the trees also address the heat island effect, helping to reduce the overall experience of the corridor on a hot day.
Thank you. So with that, we'll turn to the next caller is Gina Russ. Hello, Gina.
Hello, how are you? I'd like to talk about the design, because I think that when you come off the expressway, this is your entrance to Miami Beach, and Miami Beach, not like South Beach, but Miami Beach of Art Basel. I think this gives us an opportunity to create a wow, that it's a sophisticated, elegant, fantastic, different looking street than you would see other places. And I think I'd like to know who is doing the design of this, and to talk about bringing in the arts community on the front end, so that this is something special. It's not the pink sidewalk you see in the Art Deco area. It's something different. And if we don't do this on the front end, it's not going to happen. I mean, I look at your lights, and the lights you use are like these old-fashioned lighting systems versus what you see at South Point Park, which is fabulous and different and really looks modern. So I think that's critical. If we're going to spend the money, we're not going to get another chance. So let's do it as something special. And I'd like to know, is AECOM, are you guys doing the design? Is another company doing the design? I think that's really critical. I'd also like to talk about the palm trees. I think when you drive down the street, the palm trees are elegant, and I'm not saying keeping all of them, but other suggestions from the other company was to use awnings, to use trellis systems to create shade. But the palm trees are beautiful as you drive down that street. So I think we need to also think about those other options as we go. I think also restaurants, like, do we have an idea what we're going to do here? I look at Coral Gables and Miracle Mile, and the street off Miracle Mile, Giraldi, is a fabulous, vibrant street filled with restaurants at night. Where are these tables going to go? If we don't have a vision, you know, we may want to have one street that's all restaurants, and that creates all of the people coming there at night and families, but we don't have a vision for what we're doing. I think I think it's fantastic to make the street beautiful, but I think you need a vision first of what you want to put where, so you know where you're going to put planters and you know where you're going to need parking. And I also think there's a real concern about parking on the west side of 41st Street, about, you know, are there enough parking lots there? So I think we really, as Bill said, need to think about the parking, because the worst thing would be to bring people there and not have a place to park and have people leave. And I also think that a lot of the input from the community, it may have 2 more minutes, may have been 1 minute, may have been on people that use it versus people that are going to Sunset Harbor. I mean, I walk to Sunset Harbor. I don't walk to 41st Street. Those are the people that are outside in a vibrant walking community. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. So with that, I'll turn it over to Maria to maybe touch on some of the points you mentioned.
Yes, hi, Gina. Thank you for your comments, because they're all, you know, so important to us. But I agree with you that this is like a gateway. 41st Street is a gateway. I want everybody to know that as part of all of these streetscape projects, we also have an art in public places component. So we will be engaging the Art in Public Places Committee to propose something to be done that's special, you know, somewhere on the street. As in terms of which design firm is going to take this on, this is the vision plan that we have been able to put together with the budget that we have. So $15 million, even though it sounds like a lot of money, on a large street like this, it's we have to be careful how it's spent so we can really give the entire street, you know, the most bang for the dollars, right? So AECOM's scope of work with us to do this initial schematic phase is going to be done right around the time that we take this either to the neighborhoods committee and the commission for approval. After that, it will go out to bid for a firm, which of course AECOM is welcome to be a bidder, to develop the design further. The design is going to have to go to the city's design review board. And that is now a requirement of all the streetscapes and all of the right-of-way projects in the city. So there's going to be different layers and at different times that are going to refine the design more and more. At this point, it's really conceptual, and I hope that maybe you can look at the design on your own time through the portal, so you can see that I think we did answer a lot of your questions about getting people to, be able to open outdoor cafes and to have seating with umbrellas and things like that, more than hanging awnings off of buildings. I mean, that's something that requires different permits and has different wind load requirements. We want to create the space for the businesses to be able to expand and have their outdoor cafes. And then I think we'll get more of a feel the way you're thinking of, Miracle Mile, where there's that kind of activity. So hopefully that answered some of your questions. And of course, you can reach out to us at any time and we can answer more of your questions. Okay?
Thank you, Maria. So we'll go to the next caller is Deborah. Hi, Deborah. It seems you're muted.
Wait a minute. Can you hear
There
me?
you are. Yep.
There I am. Well,
Hey.
it's not Deborah, it's Randy.
Hi, Randy.
But I'm using her Zoom, so this is, I guess, how it works. Anywho, I'm a native of Miami Beach for a long time, and I'm actually a property owner on 41st Street. Has anyone reached out to the retailers on 41st Street to ask them what they would be interested in seeing done or what would help their businesses? I'd like an answer, and obviously the busier 41st Street is, the better. So I think bringing, what they might have some real firsthand on the ground input. Has anyone reached out? And if not, do they plan to?
So Randy, I'm going to turn it over to Jadel, and Jadel's our redevelopment specialist in the Economic Development Office to help answer that question. Jadel?
Good afternoon, Randy. How you doing? Thank you for that great question. When it comes to asking the business community more or less about what improvements or what revitalization projects they would like to see on the corridor, we have a 41st Street committee that's been appointed by our mayor. And in this 41st Street committee, it's composed of different business stakeholders along with different community members who set out plans along with different ideas on how they could, or how we as a whole, as a staff, can take a look at the 41st Street corridor and also revitalize the community. We invite all community members, including business owners, to our meetings. Our next meeting is going to be October 15th at 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. It's posted on our city calendar website. So if you go to our city website and if you view the city calendar, it's going to be on the October 15th tab. And we welcome anyone who would be willing to go ahead and share a public comment or any idea of their ideas on how we can improve this corridor and make it a viable space for not only the community members, but also business owners as a whole.
Thank you, Jadel. So we'll go to the next caller, and the next caller is Antia Grossman. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. So you are muted. I'm going to ask to unmute.
Yes, hi.
Hi there.
Born and raised on Miami Beach and also a property owner on Miami Beach. And I'm very concerned, especially with the removal of the on-street parking on the west side of 41st Street. We already have an existing problem where our businesses have difficulty for their patients, their clients, their vendors, anybody parking in that area. And so if you're going to start removing parking spaces on the street and on the side streets, unless the city is planning on building up on the present west side flat parking lot, we're going to have a major problem. And all of these ideas to increase business and increase use of 41st Street is very nice, but we need to have parking. We get a lot of people in our office buildings on 41st Street that don't live in walking distance, and they need a place to park when they come to the office buildings. And so we need to really keep that in mind when we're trying to remove things. I also think that if there's any way of having an incentive for either the tenants on the street or the property owners to upgrade their facilities, that might be a way of also enhancing the beautification of 41st Street. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments and sharing that. We're going to go to the next caller, Mr. Hernandez.
Hi, actually, it's
Hi.
his daughter, Janet Hernandez. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Great presentation, and I think we welcome any type of revitalization of 41st Street. We just wanted to touch base on a couple things. We actually live right off of 41st Street on Sheridan Avenue. And one of the things that we've noticed, we've lived here since 1979, and so we've seen the evolution of the area in terms of traffic. And so while I am mindful of the proposals and trying to make it more pedestrian friendly, I'm wondering if there has been any consideration in terms of what that would do on the traffic side. Because we've seen an incredible increase in terms of how long it takes to get to the highway from Sheridan Avenue, and I just can't imagine what this would do in terms of increasing traffic. Secondly, maybe you addressed it and I just missed it, but also if this project was to take place, what would be the timeline and the disruption to the area? And then the third piece would be in terms of the parking, which relates to some of the comments that have been made. A lot of people, we find that work on 41st Street actually end up parking in front of the residential homes, and it actually is problematic just in terms of regular residents parking. And so I'm just a little bit afraid of the impact that that will have, and I'm wondering if that's been considered.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. I'll turn it over to Sarah for the first part regarding coordination and transportation. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your comments. So regarding transportation and congestion, definitely part of future development phases, there would likely be a traffic study done to coordinate with the county and some of those pieces. And because this is really a beautification effort, the focus is on sort of the sidewalk and these types of things. And so because we're not actually making any proposals to the roadway itself, it's really just enhancing what's existing to sort of give the effect to drivers to slow down. Any sort of circulation and studies and congestion and traffic studies, that would be done sort of in the future as part of something totally separate. In terms of addressing congestion, the city is developing or installing tag readers to address that, as well as putting in a new signal at Jefferson on 41st Street to both respond to pedestrians who want safer crossing, as well as sort of respond to, sort of traffic flow and that sort of thing along 41st Street. So I think these are known issues, and in our conversation with the city's transportation department, they have their own process sort of addressing that, but this project really focuses on streetscape beautification on sort of sidewalks and some of these public or city right-of-ways and that sort of thing, not the roadway itself.
Thanks, Sarah. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Daniel. Daniel, if you could just state your name for us.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Daniel Summer, and I have 3 questions. The first is, when the AltaGel did a study, they mentioned one of the big things was to open a public-style grocery market on 41st Street, and I didn't see this in the plan. Is it still part of the plan? The second is, on this plan on slide 37, it discusses removing 107 royal palm trees. And then it discusses adding other trees, but it doesn't say how many other trees and what types the other trees would be. I'd like to know that. And the third question is, there was a discussion about doing outdoor cafes and the expanded sidewalks. Is the city going to have the existing permitting structure and fee structure for that, or will it be easier for restaurants to put tables on the expanded sidewalks? Thank you.
Thank you. So for your first question, I'll turn that back to Jadel.
How you doing, sir? Good afternoon, and thank you for your question. So the intent of this 41st Street Corridor project, for the most part, is to revitalize the 41st Street Corridor with neighborhood landscaping and infrastructure improvements, using the general obligation dollars that were allocated for this specific project. And as Maria stated earlier, this specific project was for $15 million. This specific project doesn't cover any private development. We're not looking at anything when it comes to private development in deterrent with the 41st Street Corridor. We're specifically looking at the Streetscape project. Any future land use plans or any type of plans that are dedicated to discussion of business development such as Publix, that's going to come at a later time, and that's going to be discussed with staff along with community members and stakeholders of the Mid-Beach community.
Thank you. So I see we have a follow-up from this Janet Hernandez. I'm going to go back to Janet for that follow-up. Oh, I lost you. Oh, Janet, did you not have a, just want to make sure we're able to. And so I'm going to go ahead and prioritize those who haven't spoken yet. So if you have a question and you haven't spoken, please go ahead and raise your hand so you could appear. I see we have some new callers just appear. So I know, Jeff, you haven't spoken yet, so I'm going to go to Mr. Jeff Gale. Hi, Jeff, can you hear us? I'm going to ask to unmute. Just click unmute and there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Thanks for calling on me. So I may have missed it because I had to step away for about 20 minutes. So what I see is that the entire project could take until 2025 at the best, and maybe as long as 10 years from now to complete. And I think I heard that 1.5 has already been allocated. When can we expect to see something on 41st Street besides just the trees wrapped with lights? And I do have a question about those lights on those trees. To me, it's a little too much. Is that solar? Are those solar lights? I mean, or if not, how much electricity is being used to power those lights on 41st Street? So first of all, I'd like to know when we're going to see something on 41st Street besides just those trees wrapped in the lights. $1.5 million I heard has already been allocated. And actually, I want to know what's going to happen with that big old movie theater that's been sitting vacant for 25, 30 years, for as long as I've lived down here.
Thanks, Jeff. So I'm going to turn that over to Maria, and she'll help answer that question for you.
Hi, Jeff. So the lights, the wrap lighting is an installation that was done outside of the GO bond. It wasn't done with GO bond dollars. But there is going to be a lighting enhancement done within the next couple of months. That is going to use GO bond dollars. The existing light poles that we have fixtures on the top. It's called a luminaire, actually, that are very old. They're not efficient, and they're going to get replaced by LED fixtures, which are much more efficient. And that is a project that's already been funded, and it's gonna, they've been ordered, and we might even get them done before the end of the year. Now, that's the last physical thing. And by the way, that's a public safety issue, so we've knocked out the lighting as quickly as possible. Now, in terms of your other question regarding the timing, we have two ways of doing it, like I described in the beginning of the presentation. The $1.5 million that we have will take us all the way to the complete development of construction documents for a building permit. So it'll go all the way to that point. After that, we need the dollars to do the construction. Right now, those dollars are allocated over many years, but we could, if we have the support of the community and our commissioners, we could fast track that and get this whole project done. Even though we're saying 2025, it could be sooner. We could actually get it done within the next 3.5 years. You could see the whole thing finished. But those are issues that we have to discuss with our commission, and we have to see how these meetings go over the next couple of months to see if we have community support, commission support, and we can recommend that to the commission for them to tell us go. So in the best case scenario, it'll be 3.5 years, it'll all be done. In the worst case scenario, it'll be spread out longer than that. I think there was a question that you had, did you take the question, Jadel? He had I think another question that was business related. I'm not 100% sure though. I'm sorry.
Let's
Did
see
you
if,
have another question, Jeff?
Jeff, did you have another question there?
Yeah,
You
the
just-
big old movie theater on 41st.
Okay,
Street.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So, I'm Jeff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're speaking of the Roosevelt Theater on the 41st, right next to Alton, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so
Jeff, you're muted.
Correct.
okay, so thank you for the question. So just like the public's development and just like any other private development, this corridor project, it would not be specifying those terms. We are specifically talking about the private, we're talking about the public development of the 41st Street corridor, the streetscape design project of revitalizing that corridor. All discussions when it comes to private development, that comes at a later conversation with those private owners. And please rest assured that we as an economic development staff, we've been in communication with those owners, and we, just like you, we would love to see some type of development, but that's something at a later time. Right now, this discussion is specifically talking about the revitalization of the 41st Street corridor with the neighborhood landscaping and infrastructure improvements.
Thank you, Janelle. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn to, I see somebody by the name as BG. You have not spoken yet. If you could just state your name for us. Oh, and I lost you. There we go. Hi. It's going to ask to unmute. Just unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
You can just state your name.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian Gillis, West 47th Street. I think we need to look at this corridor within the context of a neighborhood and the scale and maybe the zoning and maybe some land use. I realize it's a corridor, but there are nodes within the corridor and there are neighborhoods connected to the corridor. And I think we should try to make this more pedestrian friendly, more traffic calming is an excellent idea. And the trees and streetscaping and shading are very important, as well as using native indigenous species. I know the palm trees look nice to the tourists, but for those of us that have to clean up after hurricanes, maybe we could incorporate more xeriscaping and native species into the tree planting plan. And somebody mentioned about connectivity and connecting with the retailers, the existing retailers, whether they be chains, Dunkin' Donuts, Roasters and Toasters, Starbucks, CVS, Walgreens, Latin Cafe. I think somebody mentioned this before. It's very important that we incorporate the local businesses into the conversation and the planning.
Thank you for those comments, sir. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Sarah, if you could maybe touch on that first point.
Yeah, thank you. Very important. So in terms of a lot of the tree questions, so we did budget for tree size and then identified types that align with the forestry master plan. Understanding that the palms are really important to sort of the community identity, we really wanted to find a balance where, scheme 1 really looks to remove a lot of those, but keep them at intersections, where scheme 2 really balances them by keeping more palm trees with some shade trees. So for clarification, scheme 1 has 129 palm trees that remain and 78 shade trees to remain. Scheme 2 has 117 palm trees that remain and 97 proposed shade trees. So it is sort of a balance that we're trying to strike there, but then also make sure that we're working with the Urban Forestry Master Plan, which did a lot of very in-depth analysis around what types of trees are best from an environmental ecosystem perspective, making sure we're also thinking through, we don't want to promote like Zika and that type of thing. So really trying to span the balance between what remains and what's proposed by also really trying to encourage that community identity with the palm tree. So striking a balance between that. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So we're going to go to our next caller is George. Again, if you're calling via the phone, go ahead and click *9 so you could raise your hand. Hi, George.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm a resident in Miami Beach or Prairie Avenue. And from the design, there seems to be some structure taken into consideration with regards to pedestrian safety. However, I would like to know how much in-depth analysis has been done to really think about all these additional pedestrians that we all want to have on 41st Street, right next to cars that will not travel at the speed limit of 30 miles per hour, whether deliberately or accidentally. We have seen on Lincoln Road how, given some events in other parts of the world, there were some barriers added with the purpose of protecting the pedestrian walkways. Is something like that being considered, or some alternative to prevent a high-speed vehicle, whether it's deliberately or accidentally, hitting people sitting on a sidewalk right off a busy roadway such as 41st Street? Thank you.
Thank you, George. So we'll go ahead and turn that over to Sarah to see if she could comment.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it's something we definitely did consider. So I guess, you know, in both schemes, we really looked at design intervention, buffer between pedestrian and vehicle environment. So really thinking through how to incorporate more vegetation, trees, plantings, that sort of thing for that natural buffering. You know, the concrete seating is something else we sort of looked at as sort of a sculptural element that both looks like it's really a part of the street, but also provides a protective barrier to the vehicle roadway. And then in terms of some of the areas where there's the parking and sidewalk connection, that flexible space in Scheme 2, potentially looking at bollards and additional lighting, planting as buffers. So it creates that buffer, but it really feels like it's designed versus some sort of structural safety element, but something that really feels natural and a part of the design, but also serves as that buffer between pedestrian environment and vehicle environment.
Thank you, Sarah. So if everyone could raise their hand who wishes to speak, just so we know about approximately how many people are left. So again, just click the raise your hand feature if you want to make a final comment as we begin to wrap up. And if you're on the phone, please click *9. So with that, I'll go to our next caller, Michael.
Hello, how are you? Michael Bromley.
Hello.
How are you? I apologize. I was delayed in signing on, but I have a question. I understand that there is a plan from another participant who's on listening in that to eliminate the east-west parallel parking and expand the sidewalks. Is that in fact the case?
So I believe, Sarah, that's part of the first schematic?
Yes, and for clarification on that, so we wanted to create two really different proposals in two schemes, and the survey will allow you to really vote on your preference between those, but Scheme 1 does propose removing all of the on-street to make way for widened sidewalks. Mm-hmm. And then Scheme 2 really sort of mixes that up, so provides some on-street parking and some expanded sidewalk at flexible sites. But you know, we really want you to put in your input on this survey so we can develop a preferred alternative that may end up as a hybrid. But for clarification, Scheme 1 does recommend removing all on-street parking, and Scheme 2 mixes some on-street and some expansion.
Understood. If I may, one quick follow-up question, and that is as far as the timing of when you anticipate actually when the project would commence.
And so I'll go ahead and turn that over to Maria. And Michael, as he gets on, you mentioned you joined a little late. So the entire presentation is available online, either on the city's website at miamibeachfl.gov/NAD, or if you go to gombinfo.com, you'll see a little article that has information about tonight's meeting. If you click on that, you'll be able to get to the whole presentation and review it again.
Thank you.
So Maria?
Hi, Michael. I did cover this in the presentation. There's a slide on it, but there's two options for the way this may go. The more fast track option could have the project starting as early as 2022 and being finished before 2025. And I'm talking about construction now. There is the way that the project is scheduled right now, it really goes over a long time. But we may recommend, depending upon the kind of feedback we get and the community support that we get, we may recommend more of a fast track where we can get it done over the next few years and not wait for 10 years. So it depends how we get our feedback.
Thank you, Maria. So with that, I don't see anyone who has not spoken. So I'm going to go to somebody who has a follow-up point. If you wish to speak again, just click raise your hand. Some people seem to appear and they disappear. So make sure your hand's raised if you would like to say something. So we're going to go back to Bill with a follow-up. Hi, Bill.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Traffic calming. That's one of those buzzwords that's kind of hard to comprehend. When there is street parking, I get it. You know, you got people coming out of their cars, doors opening and closing, that has a natural propensity to slow down traffic. You eliminate the street parking, the street's going to turn into a superhighway. Can you give some specifics on what you're proposing for traffic calming and how you see them actually calming the traffic?
Yeah,
great.
This is such an important question. So it is something that we thought a lot about. Because this is an FDOT evacuation roadway, there's limited opportunity to really make recommendations on the roadway itself. You know, doing like a road diet or something, which is sort of, or raised medians, which are sort of traditional ways to traffic calm. And so what we really looked at doing is, you know, understanding those constraints and making sure we're responding to that desire by the community by doing things like textured medians, you know, colored or textured crosswalks that really, you know, to a driver alerts them to say, okay, there's pedestrian activity here, encourages the pedestrian to say, feel a little bit safer and more protected. The question earlier about, you know, safety from oncoming traffic to sidewalks or something, you know, having those increased landscape elements to really buffer between pedestrian and vehicle, that serves a dual purpose. One, to tell the pedestrian, I feel safer. And another is for the driver to say, okay, there's pedestrian activity here, bicycle activity. You know, the removal of on-street parking, exactly to your point, you know, having less on-street parking where you have doors opening. You know, I know as a cyclist, it's really hard when you're driving down on-street parking and you get doored. That's a terrible experience. And so that's why we wanted to create one proposal that sort of addresses that, and maybe a hybrid option sort of meets that halfway. But it is something we looked at. Further traffic analysis would have to be done sort of with FDOT and the county to really look at traffic calming and congestion and circulation, to some of the questions earlier. But we did spend a lot of time really talking about what are some of those elements, such as vegetative buffering, you know, advanced colors and textures on sidewalks and crossing. There's also signal projects going on with the city at Jefferson Avenue to address that. And, you know, safety is such a priority for the city. So they have a lot of different projects they're trying to program in, but because this is a beautification project, that we really look to address some of the traffic calming in relationship to the roadway environment through materials, vegetation, crossing, those types of improvements.
Thank you, Sarah. So we'll go to our next caller, Ms. Karen Revo, or Chair of the GOB Oversight Committee.
Yes. Hi, Kevin. So as I was introduced, I am really honored to be the chair of the Oversight Committee. And, you know, it is our task to make sure the city delivers on all 57 projects as was promised to the voters. But I'm speaking tonight really as a Mid-Beach resident. I've lived in this neighborhood for 25 years. I love this neighborhood. It's a gem. And I am really excited about the potential to give our neighborhood a facelift and to really reinvigorate the area. And so I'm going to ask everyone to please make sure that you fill the survey out and that you send it to your neighbors, because the staff really want to hear from you now. This is the week to do it. And our oversight committee will be meeting in a few weeks, and we will look at your feedback. And it's important to us. So I just want to thank you all, and I want to thank staff and AECom for doing such a great presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for those kind thoughts there. So we're going to turn to Gina. Hi, Miss Gina Russ.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to just say, to go over something Bill said, and that was about parking. I think that's a critical issue. And if I was making this decision, I would want to know best practices for retailers if there's no parking on the street. I don't think I have the expertise to make a decision, or many of the people here, maybe some do, but it shouldn't be a 10-question survey that makes a decision for 41st Street as to whether there's parking on the street that could affect all those businesses. I think there should be a study, or we should know best practices for these kinds of streets and what impact that will have. And if we do leave some or all the parking, then I think also a third scheme would be to be able to put as much into 41st Street, the main 41st Street, with parking, because I don't think it should be, if we have that we still don't, if we leave some of the parking, that 41st Street doesn't have the major impact as to what it looks like and the elements that are added to it. So I just think it's very important to look at the parking, talk to the businesses. I don't know how you can make a decision without the businesses who experience parking every day with their customers, and the uses there. So I think that's a critical element of what goes forward. I also looked at the Alta Gale, and again, they talked about bringing families. They talked about having areas for families and making it family friendly, and I don't see that element. And again, that would have to be planned now. If there's a place that you want to do something to make an area for families or an area for events to happen, I think that needs to be looked at now if there is an opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for those comments. And with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Seth Godinsky. And he is our chair of the 41st Street Mayor's Blue Ribbon Panel. Hi, Seth.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's participating. It's great to have the community feedback. Obviously, we need that and we encourage it. Just want to make a couple of overriding comments. There were some questions about some things outside the scope of this, which we've addressed considerably at our 41st Street meetings. We're having another one October 15th. I encourage anybody who's on this call that wants to know more about some of the things not covered by this plan to please come and ask the question and we'll fill you in. Things regarding what the Roosevelt Theater property and potential grocery store specifically. The one thing is for sure, because we've got so many stakeholders, including the state with the DOT road and pedestrians and cars, and it's a major thoroughfare, and that whatever we do, somebody's going to feel left behind. I just want to make sure everybody understands that, where it's a major balancing act here, and there's no way we could accommodate everybody and have a workable plan. So, but we're trying. And regarding the business owners, I just want to say we've been at this a while. We have had meetings after meetings, both community, specifically for the business owners. They've been invited. If any business owner at this point feels like they don't know what's going on, that's because they're choosing not to find out what's going on. So rest assured that everybody has been reached out to and asked their opinion. And if they feel like they're coming in at the end, it's still not too late to express an opinion. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that. This has been a 2-year process to get to this point, and nobody's voice has been muted. All right, well, that's just it. Thank you. I hope to see/hear a lot of you again at the next 41st Street meeting, and appreciate your concerns.
Thank you, Seth. Before I go to the next caller, I just wanted to check on Sarah, if you wanted to touch on maybe one of the points that we missed from an earlier caller.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about, and to Seth's point about, program versus sort of structural elements along the corridor. So in the 2 schemes that are being developed really focus on creating space as flexible design options for what's possible for the businesses and the environment and folks who would come visit. And to Seth's point about, there's so many stakeholders. And so what these, really try to do, these two designs is really try to respond to all of those diverse, needs from, I know there's a comment about, creating space for families, trying to create flexible space that allows, opportunity for markets or for these different types of activities that would be programmed by the city or, different businesses or different events. But the design is really looking to create that sort of flexible environment and options for you. This really came out of all the robust engagement done by Altagal, who definitely reached out to all the different stakeholders involved and tries to create feasible options based on that visioning process. And so what we've done here is really, reconcile between constraints of FDOT roadway with, really the vision of the community and all the people who have been involved and affected and interested and invested in 41st Street and the broader neighborhood.
Thank you. So we have one last caller. This is Michelle. Hi, Michelle. You're a final caller.
Hi, my name is Michelle
Hi.
Khan. I'm a lifelong resident of Miami Beach. I've been following this for several meetings already. And I guess my concern is having a group of, how much can a 10-question survey really gather the information that's necessary? And especially about something like parking, I know some people have had concerns, but that seems like something that, there has to be someone with expertise in parking that will know, like, if it's going to kill the businesses on 41st Street or if it's really going to help the businesses on 41st Street. Does that include, like, where are UPS trucks going to stop? Where do FedEx trucks stop? Also, there are alleyways behind a lot of the businesses, between the businesses and the parking. How does that get utilized? It seems like those alleyways are practically small roads into and of themselves that run parallel to 41st Street. And I'm wondering if anyone ever bothered taking a look at those and seeing how those could be implemented to bring the community in more and to, or to alleviate some of the, either traffic or pedestrian or parking or bicycle or something from 41st Street. And just lastly, in terms of, someone mentioned, please send it out to all of your friends. Do you guys have an email list that this is going out to? Like, do you have like the head of all of the HOAs so that the HOAs can send it to all of their constituents as well?
Yep. Yeah, so thanks for that question, Michelle. That's exactly right. So we have an email list, and through the Neighborhood Affairs Division, we're going to go ahead and send that out to all of the HOAs and ask them to participate. It'll also be posted on Nextdoor. I know some people aren't on Nextdoor, but if you are, you'll see it there. We're also going to send it via our citywide email list, and I think I added you probably about 2 weeks ago. So everyone who's on those updates for each of the different areas, South, Middle, North Beach, they will receive it as well. And then in terms of any questions and any written responses that somebody wants to submit, it's going to be listed in that email on to view the project page. And when you view the project page, you have an opportunity to download the full survey. We're going to get this video presentation online. So if you want to view the video, you could view the video. And then you could participate in the survey at your own time. If you want to go through the entire presentation again, point by point, you can. And that's from now until October 7th. So a week from today is when that period's going to be left open. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison, and Allison's going to wrap it up. And with that, Allison?
Thank you, everyone. I'm so glad to see that we had about 80 people on the call at our high point today, listening to your responses on how to give more feedback beyond the survey. Like Kevin noted, there's multiple ways to do that, and we're taking written feedback in addition to the survey feedback, like we said, through for one whole week through the 7th. You could email me. You could email our Neighborhood Affairs Division. All of those emails are within this presentation here. This presentation is accessible actually from this tinyurl.com link itself as well. So when you open the survey, there's a place on the top that says click here to view the presentation. So it makes it easy for you all to view it all at once. Always go to gombinfo.com. If you click contact us, that contact form, I know a lot of times when you go to a contact form page, you never hear back, but that's not the case with our team. You will hear back within 48 hours and probably less. So please always keep contacting us. Another myth is that we don't take, public feedback seriously. Especially with this AECOM team, I will say they have absolutely incorporated everything they possibly can that they've heard from the public, and they still have that time to do so. That's why we're ending, submissions of responses on the 7th, so they can actually have a pencils down point and really work that into a final design that we can all be happy with. I thank you all so much for being here. Stay in touch, be safe, enjoy. And we're gonna have an awesome 41st Street corridor coming up. Thank you, everyone. Good night.